involved with Little League, and one of the reasons that I am here tonight, we didn't get the chance to attend some previous meetings that was involved by the various planners, but with the demise of the Babe Ruth organization, the use of the field up there on the north end, Little League has the south end that they've been using with the lease with the city since 1951. And this happens to be the only full-size diamond field there is available here in the city of Port Orchard. Well, our Little League programs, we go in the major leagues from 10 through 12 years of age, and then we go into a program called our Junior Little League program, and that's ages 12 through 14. And then from there, they graduate into senior baseball programs, 14 through 16. And then the culmination of our entire program is where the bigger kids, we call the Big League program, and that takes care of ages 14 through 18. Now, South Kitsap Western Little League, who is the one that has had the lease up there since 1951 on the south end of Givens Field, been a pretty successful lease with you people because they have put tens of thousands of dollars into that project. I don't think any time you've ever had any problems with them, any time there was anything to be done, why they always came back to the city of Port Orchard and asked for permission to do this, and they accomplished those things at their own cost. So our main project right now, some people think I retired from Little League. Well, I really retired as a district administrator from Little League, but I still am involved with Little League and on the staff for our district. But we are definitely interested while you are making the settlement on who gets the lease for the north end of Givens Field. We're interested at least for the first 3 months, at least through July, so that we could play at home with the junior, senior, and big league programs that I spoke about. Right now, the teams that Western has, they have to move and play either on some of the junior high school fields or play out on the adult field out at South Kitsap Southern. So those are the things that we are considering today, and I understand that you people have had a meeting and that there was some question as to whether there was going to check with the attorneys to see whether it's legal for, let's say, you to grant us at least the use of the field at that time through July. South Kitsap Western has applied for getting the franchise, or the lease rather, not the franchise, for the north end of the field. And whenever that comes up, why, we want to be notified so that we can appear and make some complaints on, let's say, where we wish to go and the upkeep of the ball field. I've stressed to many of you on the city council here, the worst enemies that a baseball field has is playing football and soccer on it. They really tear it up, and it's so much work to get the field back into condition again. But I think those are the comments that I'd like to make at this time, and I'd like to have Bob Showers, who is the president of South Kitsap Western, come up here to see whether he needs to add any additional info, and at least you get the opportunity to meet him and know where we are. We've gone through, I think, this will be my 60th year in Little League, and we've probably gone through 50,000 or more kids. That's throughout the entire program when I was involved, not just here in Port Orchard. But Bob, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Well, actually, Art, we're going to have a discussion about this, and I think what I'd like to do is when we have the discussion, call you up at that point.
Oh, you mean tonight?
Yes, we are.
Oh, I thought you meant at a later date. Well, that's fine,
No,
too.
we're gonna have a discussion on that tonight.
Okay. You don't need to have Bob Showers make any comments then.
Well, he may want to at that point,
All right,
okay?
we'll wait.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the council? Anyone else? All right, we'll move on. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add business item 7E, discussion of the leases at Gibbons Field.
Okay.
Timely.
Was there a second?
Second it.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended then.
So move.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstaining? Motion carries. I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So move.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. All right, business items. Approval of contract number C15-10, authorizing the mayor to execute temporary memorandum of agreement with Port of Bremerton for waterfront parking allocation and control. Mr. Dorsey.
Thank you, Your Honor, council members. At the August 13, 2009 Public Properties Committee meeting, Mr. Brian Sauer of the Port of Bremerton presented proposed modifications to the current waterfront parking memorandum of understanding that stated February 13, 1996. The requested modifications would provide for one additional port parking space near the Port Orchard Marina office. In exchange for this additional parking stall, the port proposes to groundskeeping responsibility of the landscaped area within the city's lot number 2, as well as providing for all signage and striping modifications necessary in the proposed exchange. At the August 15, 2009 Port Orchard City Council work study session, the Port of Bremerton once again presented the proposed modifications to the current MOU, whereby council directed staff to work with the port in preparation of a revised memorandum of agreement, or MOA. The Port of Bremerton has agreed to terms and conditions outlined in the temporary MOA between the City of Port Orchard and the Port of Bremerton concerning the allocation and control of parking on waterfront property. The MOA is to be temporary until the waterfront lease with the Department of Natural Resources is resolved. Staff recommends that the council approve contract number C015-10, thereby authorizing the mayor to execute the temporary memorandum of agreement between the City of Port Orchard and the Port of Bremerton concerning the allocation and control of parking on the waterfront property.
Okay, what's your pleasure? Jim?
I move to approve contract number C015-10, authorizing the mayor to execute the temporary memo of agreement between the City of Port Orchard and the Port of Bremerton concerning the allocation and control of parking on waterfront property.
Second.
Discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Okay, John and then Rob.
I do have, I guess, a mild concern, and that is condition number 5. We are trading parking straight across, minus one stall, for which the port is going to compensate the city by maintaining the landscaped area. And yet, we're having a condition on 8 of the spaces that we're going to take control of that limits our abilities. I have a little bit of a concern over that. I don't know if others have the same kind of concern, but it's either we swap parking or
Or we
let's
don't?
leave these 8 spaces out, leave it for the port, and we'll keep 8 spaces on the other side.
Okay, Rob?
I just, about the landscape maintenance, is that going to start right away as soon as this memo is signed, or is it going to be part of the DNR? So something's planned right away?
I think it will start right away, and we'll be bringing the contract renewal. We've sent the information back. We're supposed to be getting a revised bid, because you know, remember in our landscape contract, we had that provision that when this occurred,
Right.
we'd get a new price. So that's all being ground through the churn at this point.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that as soon as we enter into this agreement with the port, that they're going to take, sooner rather than later, take responsibility for that.
And Brian Sowers here in the audience, if anybody has questions.
Okay, Carolyn?
Well, I had marked number 5. I'm not sure, I was thinking the same thing that John was, but my concern about the language to support public access to and use of the Port Orchard Marina Park and the Mary Ann Huntington Children's Park. And my question is, does that mean it's exclusive for those two particular areas, or can anybody go in there and park in those spaces? Because it sounds like, when you read this, that it's being set aside for use and access at those two areas, the Marina Park and the Mary Ann Huntington Children's Park.
Well,
So that's why I flagged it.
this was discussed at work study, so, this was presented as council directed. And the port had presented previously this proposal that those 8 stalls be for parking at the actual park itself, and they'll be designated with some different type of markings, I'm assuming. All the parking around those 8 are numbered parking as part of our paid parking. So they'll definitely be distinguished. But,
So if,
so if you want to go down and have your kids play at the park, that was the intent. That was what the port requested early on. And like I said, this was discussed at length at the work study session.
This particular provision was discussed?
I don't remember that
I
myself.
don't remember that discussion at all.
You remember that,
I
anybody
the
else?
transfer of parking, but not the limitation on
No.
use.
I don't
No,
remember
it was-
discussion, I don't remember Brian Sauer mentioning it.
It was,
My recommendation, if I may, is that it was,
Come to the mic, please.
Yeah, Brian, why don't you come up and clarify this for us?
Well, now you're in for it.
my recommendation is that that was designated to be 4-hour parking, so that it was not necessarily the paid parking, similar to what it is now in the existing spaces. And what that would allow is still lots of paid parking, actually an increase in the availability of paid parking in the area, and still limiting 8 spaces to short-term parking. And it doesn't have to be just for the use of the park. If somebody wants to go down there, park for 4 hours and walk through town and go shopping, it's still available to them. It's not designated as only for use at the park.
Question?
so
Jerry?
Well, I agree with John. I do not remember us discussing this, and I guess my question is, are these 8 spaces going to be a net loss of revenue spaces, or are they
No.
just,
Some
And then-
of the spaces that we're trading to them are 4-hour spaces.
so we're not
So it's just
losing?
moving those spaces down to that end.
So,
Well, then,
They
What's
are
the concern
4-hour
then?
spaces
Yeah,
in Lot 1?
Correct.
yeah. If you look at the summary that I have
We're
on
not
the
charging
paper-
for parking in all of those,
No.
other than what's already been allocated to the port.
there's 4-hour spaces there.
Yeah, there's
Right.
90,
Row 3 is all 4-hour parking.
I know I've used them a lot.
there's 14,
pay?
or there's 24.
Well, you didn't have to pay.
There's 24 4-hour parking at the west end currently. There's 98 4-hour parking currently overall. And with the exchange, there'll still be 82 4-hour parking.
Good. It would
And
actually.
paid parking goes from 25 to 25. It stays the same.
This is your paid parking.
may I, while there-
Okay, Carolyn, you had a question?
it's not clear to me yet, will these spaces be marked for Marina Park, the Children's Park, exclusive, and who's going to be monitoring that? If someone comes in that's free parking for 4 hours, and someone comes wherever they come from, and they go in there and park, I don't know how they're going to define it specifically Marina Park. The Children's Park would be easy, but let's say they came in there and they parked, and they went over to Amy's and had lunch or whatever they did and went down the street, and
So be it.
so they're utilizing part of that space. Is somebody going to come in there and say, you're going to be impounded? Is it like a business that says for customer
No.
parking only?
My understanding is that the design was that it'd be 4-hour parking for whatever use, just that it not all of the spaces be marked as paid parking, so that anybody that was coming down there would have to pay to take their children to play, or for whatever other use it may be.
In other words, there's
I
no
think-
guarantees
yeah.
that those spaces will be available, but if they come down there, possibly they will,
Correct.
just to support it.
It's just to help support
I
the.
think that clarifies it for
And
me.
it's a similar trade in that the spaces that are in front of the marina office currently, there are 14,
24.
well, but 8 of them remain. But there are numerous 4-hour zone spaces, and we'd like to see that some of those remain so that people don't have to pay to park.
Yeah, Fred?
On this Exhibit C, there's a little table here right in the middle of it, the map one here.
Okay?
And it says here that the paid parking, the next to the last item there, that the paid parking is actually, there's an increase of 15 spaces of paid parking, with these 8 spaces being unpaid 4-hour parking.
So we're going to go to less 4-hour parking and more paid with this plan.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And I don't think the intent is to label those spaces parking only.
No.
It's
No,
just-
I
It's just
misspoke.
unpaid 4-hour parking.
It was 4-hour parking next to the parks to help support it, but I misspoke when I said
Anybody can
specific
park there.
to.
Yeah.
If it's open.
They're just 4-hour,
Well, I was just
they're
looking
just
at the
4-hour
language.
stalls that will be policed as 4-hour stalls.
Okay,
As-
John,
as any of
you
the
had a
rest will be.
comment?
Yeah, I guess I have a question, Brian. Would you, as the port, be willing to allocate 8 of your spaces there to 4-hour parking to support the observation platform and the activities down at that end of town? In
Oh.
exchange for the 8 stalls that we're going to be allocating down at the Marina Park?
There are still 8 down there that are,
I understand, but of those that we are trading, will you designate 8 of them as 4-hour available to whomever? That's what we're doing down here at the east end of the lot. Would you be willing to do the same with the parking that the port is going to be
that was not,
acquiring in this deal?
that was not the design, no. What,
I understand it's not written in there, but as I indicated, this, at least for me, and it sounds like for a few others, was a surprise.
Well-
So I guess I'm asking you, would the port be willing to likewise designate 8 stalls down in that area that you're going to acquire for the same 4-hour time frame?
I would have to discuss that further with the rest of the board members, but we had felt that with the increased 15 additional paid spaces, that it wouldn't necessarily be needed, and that the spaces that were left as not paid spaces at the far end were in lieu of the other spaces at the, in Lot 1 that were 4-hour spots.
I understand, but you're putting a condition on the city for the use of the parking that we're going to trade you. A
Understand?
specific condition for which you don't have a likewise condition. You can use your stalls exclusively for whatever you want. We would be unable to use all of our stalls the way the city wants. And I'm not
Okay.
suggesting that the city is going to charge for those. It's just a condition being put on the city for which, you know, if we're going to trade, we're going to trade. Not with conditions, I guess would be mine, or like what conditions.
So Brian, if we took the conditions off of those, even if we kept those as 4-hour parking, but we just took it out of this agreement that was in there, but we probably would do that thing. I think that's what John's saying, is we'll probably do it, but why do we have conditions on our side and the port doesn't?
I understand.
Would that be a deal breaker for you guys in this thing if we took that number
It
5 out of
depends
there?
on the mood of my commission, I would assume. They had instructed me that I would like to see something in there to help promote the idea that there was still not paid parking
Yeah.
nearby.
I mean, I understand that, but you can understand that that's our,
understand it.
that will be our parking now, so the condition is actually, you're giving us a condition for our parking. That's what he's saying.
I understand it, and
Yeah,
I can't speak for my commission, but I would
So what do we wanna
that-
do?
that it would be
Fred?
fine by me.
I'd like to make an amendment to this agreement, striking in item 5, striking, putting a period after no fee parking and striking the remainder of that sentence.
Do we have a second?
Not until I see what's going on.
I'm trying to figure that out.
Item 5, Fred, go ahead and do it
Item
again.
5 would read, "The city will maintain at least 8 spaces in Lot 4 as 4-hour no-fee parking," period.
I would prefer just to strike number 5 in entirety.
Entirely, yeah.
Well,
Me too.
then make a motion for
Well,
that.
Well,
you got a motion.
Well,
to see if
wait,
there's
you've
second.
made a motion. Do
It
we have a-
hasn't been seconded.
Yeah, I was going to say, do we have a second to Fred's motion or not? Okay, motion dies for lack of a second. John?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we modify the motion to approve this agreement, striking number 5 from the conditions.
Second.
Okay, discussion?
so we'll say we approve this, right? And then you guys will have to decide whether you're going to sign it then,
Correct.
based on that. And then if you decide that they don't want to do that, then we'll have to go back to the drawing board and talk some more.
Understood.
Okay.
Okay, further discussion?
This is on the amendment now.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Further discussion on the amendment? Okay, all those in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
All those opposed?
No?
All those abstaining? Aye, motion carries. All those in favor of the main motion?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. All right, approval of supplemental number 1, amending contract number C071-09 with NL Olson and Associates for the design of the Bay Street pedestrian enhancement project. Mr. Dorsey.
On October 27, 2009, City of Port Orchard Public Works Department executed contract 071-09 with NL Olson Associates for the design of the Bay Street pedestrian enhancement project. The contract is for plan specifications, cost estimate, and environmental permitting of a 1-mile segment of pedestrian path adjacent to Sinclair Inlet. The design is currently 50% complete, and a time extension is needed to the contract. At present, the contract is due to expire April 30th, 2010, and staff is requesting a time extension to September 30th, 2010, as this will allow Olson Associates time to finish the design and permitting. Staff recommends that the council approve supplement number 1, amending contract 07109 with Olson Associates Incorporated by extending the design of the Mosquito Fleet Trail Bay Street pedestrian enhancement project to September 30th, 2010.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am?
I'll make the motion. I move to approve supplement number 1, amending contract number 071-09 with NL Olson and Associates Incorporated by extending the design of the Mosquito Fleet Trail Bay Street pedestrian enhancement project to September 30th, 2010.
Second.
Discussion?
Aye.
Fred? Fred and then Fred.
Did we expect this to be completed by April 30th?
It was a fairly aggressive schedule, and in hindsight, there was really no need to have that aggressive of schedule. It was the dollars were fairly limited, so we were just wanting to push forward. Now that the 50% design is complete and we have identified some problem areas, we need time to meet with the Department of Transportation and work through some of the problem areas that really have to do with physical constraints, whether this can be a bike trail or a joint trail, or if it may just have to be a pedestrian trail only. Mainly, it's the houses along Bay Street or Beach Drive that really we're going to be looking for policy direction. Is the council going to want the policy to be to eliminate potentially bicycles from the plan, or to remove people's garages? And it's going to be a tough policy decision, so I'll give you a heads up that we're going to meet with the state first and see if there's any latitude on the design criteria, but we have to be able to meet the standards of the funding. And so we just need some time to meet with the state and figure out how we're going to move forward before we bring it to work study and get a policy decision on some of those encroachments, because we have a number of major encroachments. It's Murphy's Law, where in the tightest areas, now you've got somebody's half their garage sticking out in the right-of-way. So we're between a rock and a hard place, and we just need time to figure out where we're going before we bring it to council, and then before we go to the public portion of this design.
So it is our right-of-way.
Fred
sorry.
is next, and then Ron.
No,
Fred.
he answered my questions. I
Okay,
just
Rob.
wanted to know why it was.
So it is our right-of-way, and if we need to widen the road or make these improvements, it is our land then.
But the houses that are there are basically on stilts, so once you remove the encroachment, there's not much, building left. So it's not going to be an easy decision. And
Is it the garage or is it the house that's built on the encroachment?
They're attached garages, but they're very small buildings, so the garages are probably being used, for storage, because they park pretty much out front.
Are these,
Sure.
are these places leasing this space from us, or is it just some kind of a grandfathered in?
I'm not sure.
Weird
I mean,
deal.
At this point, we're just looking at the ownership and the functionality of the home with or without that encroachment. And there's other choke points. So we are planning on meeting with the Department of Transportation, the local agency, to make sure we're all on the same page as far as the criteria or the guidelines for a shared path, which is 14 to 16 feet preferably, and are we going to be able to get a deviation down to 10 feet in specific areas, or is 12 feet the absolute minimum, or is 14 the absolute minimum? So we're going to have to get some clarification as we move forward. And there's no reason to rush it,
Okay, Jim?
because we have our main alternatives figured out, we have our choke points figured out, we have some sub-alternatives along the commercial corridor between the Port of Bremerton and the Bayford and West Bay Center. So, it's coming together nicely. We just have a couple of hurdles to get through.
Okay, Jim?
I'm wondering if September 30th is long enough. If we take a year on parking downtown, we can't figure that out, so just a comment.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Wake up. All those opposed? All those abstaining? Motion carries. Approval of contract number 016-10, ratifying the mayor's signature for Festival Foot Ferry Service with Kitsap Harbor Tours. Ms. Kirkpatrick.
Thank you. It's that time of year again to think about our festivals and foot ferry service. During your 2010 budget process, you approved the use of hotel motel funds for foot ferry service for festivals that fall on Sundays due to the reduction of foot ferry service by Kitsap Transit. I have worked with Kitsap Harbor Tours, who operates the foot ferry, to come up with 4 festival event days, which also include a Monday holiday. They are the Kitsap Harbor Festival, which is May 30th through 31st, which is the Memorial Weekend. Fathoms of Fun, July 4th is on a Sunday. The Cruise Car Show is August 8th, and then the Blackberry Festival in partnership with the City of Bremerton, and that falls on Labor Day weekend. The Murder Mystery Weekend is the event that's not on this list, and that is because it's been dropped to one day, Saturday only, and the foot ferry does operate during that day. I've talked to the city of Bremerton and to the port of Bremerton, and all three are willing to re-enter into contracts similar to last year, where we split 1/3 of the cost to operate the foot ferry that they do not receive payment for. And the fee this year will be $2 each way, which is the normal fare. Last year it was $1 each way, to help offset some of our additional costs. So staff just recommends approval of the contract.
Okay, Fred?
I move to approve contract number C016-10, ratifying the mayor's signature for Festival Foot Ferry Service with Kitsap Harbor Tours LLC, with the city's 1/3 share to be paid from hotel motel tax fund in an amount not to exceed $2,900.
Second.
Discussion? John?
Mr. Mayor, I think I abstained from this vote last year when we did this, and I want to make sure that's the proper procedure, because although I don't personally gain from this, nor do I have any interest in the harbor tours, they are a contractor at Kitsap Transit for which I administer the contract, so.
And so, Councilmember Clausen, you're recusing yourself, and so you should actually step down from the dais.
Not sure if it was abstaining or recusing.
Yeah, you're recusing.
Let me know when you're done.
Nice to see you again, John. You gotta be kidding.
Okay, back there in the soundproof room. Yeah. Okay, discussion.
How much did we pay last year?
We didn't use all of the money, and I'm sorry, I didn't think to grab that information, but I know that we probably had about $1,000 left over, but it wasn't, well, maybe it wasn't even that much. I think maybe it was right around between 500 and 1,000, if memory serves correct.
That was our share?
That was what was left in the hotel motel funds, that we didn't utilize it.
Is that what you?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did, a couple of the ferries, or a couple of the Sundays didn't generate revenue. Fathoms of Fun was one of them, because the 4th of July was midweek or towards the end of the week, and it was not on a weekend. And the Murder Mystery didn't bring in a big draw. So we actually paid more for those festivals. I think they averaged 287 was the least we had to pay, and 525 was the most we had to pay.
How did the Harbor Festivals one do?
We did, I think we did Sunday last year at the Harbor Festival, and I think that was the first one, and that would have been the $287.
As I recall, this was a good thing for the
Yeah.
city overall.
My point was that we're not even spending what we budgeted for.
Yeah, I didn't think
Right.
we did. All right.
So further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstaining? Motion carries. Somebody go get John.
Took so long, I dropped a degree out there. It's now down to 38.
All right, discussion, Kidnap Fiber Network build-out, letter supporting ARRA stimulus grant. Ms. Kirkpatrick.
Thank you. This came from KRCC. Mary McClure sent over a request asking for the city to support the full build-out of the Kidnap fiber optic. One of the things that I'd like to note is that I had put $5,000 per year over a 3-year period, and that was incorrect. It's $5,000 total over a 3-year period. So I'd just like to make that correction. If you support this after your discussion, I would just need a motion directing the mayor to write a letter of support saying that we will pay $5,000 over a 3-year period.
It's over a 3-year period, 16, 67, 67 per year.
What exactly does it do?
Oh, don't ask me to do this convoluted, long explanation. But basically, it ties all of the emergency services, secondary emergency services, what's thirdly emergency services? And the 4th tier emergency services all together with fiber optic,
Oh,
throughout the county. Okay, Fred, then John.
Isn't this the same outfit, Kitsap Public Utility District, that we're getting no little or no response from for the last,
Actually, they have turned on the fiber here about 2 weeks ago.
they did, because
Yes.
so we're being served by them finally.
Yes, we are, and they're in the process of getting the redundant links in place, and those should be done within the next week.
And they're also serving the courthouse, so isn't
Yes.
that the biggest part of the deal?
Yes.
So,
When's the first installment due?
I was going to speak to that.
Yeah, Carolyn can talk about
That
that.
was a question that I asked at the KRCC meeting, and the response was, first you got to have the grant approved, and then when the money comes, that's when you kick in. And the response also further said that it could be the last part of this year, it may not be until 2011. So it's not, we don't have to do it tomorrow or the next week or the next week. So that was the best answer that we got on that question.
So as early as the end of the year and for sure by the first, if it was approved.
And then it would be roughly 1/3, which would be, I think he calculated $1,669 or something like that.
So it would be an unbudgeted obligation?
Did-
It's not in our budget right now?
I'm not sure, I think we had budgeted something for this at some point, but I'm not certain.
Well, I don't remember it.
I remember us talking about this last year, but I don't remember for certain if we budgeted it or not.
And
Alan, can you help us here?
On the, before you're on this cable, the $1,600 for the year? No,
Yeah.
it's not budgeted.
well, I'm wondering when, I don't remember the man's name that presented this, but if it came toward the end of the year, I'm sure we could negotiate not.
Yeah, we could defer
that we're
until
working in our budget.
2011.
Yeah.
Well, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
So you need a motion?
Personally, I think this is a good idea. But that's, I'm in the process of research and writing this disaster plan. I think it's a great idea for us.
It was, may I speak again?
Certainly.
It's also mentioned that this will go up Mile Hill, and it will benefit the businesses up there eventually, When it was presented, it sounded like a really good thing for every one of us in the county.
It did.
And Port Orchard will benefit from it?
Yes.
Yes.
this will go up Mile Hill to the fire station or to
Well, it'll go to the fire station. I don't know if it'll go to
the school?
there's, how many fire stations listed?
Yeah,
Is there
it'll go to the
17 or-
main fire station
I
right
think
off
there
of
was
Mile
every
Hill
fire
there.
station.
I'm not sure if it goes to the one all the way down near Manchester or not. But I
Well, but-
think it does, but I don't want to say for certain.
I thought it said in here how many fire stations.
I think it was 5. Is that correct?
It says it includes 28 central Kitsap schools and 12 fire stations, 3 libraries, and the county campus, CENTCOM, and DEM.
For what we're going to get out of this is cheap. I mean, bottom line. Yeah, go ahead.
All of these entities have to agree?
Everybody has to agree and everybody has to pay. And at KRCC, pretty much everybody committed to go ahead and do it, except us. What I said is, and Carolyn said is, we're not going to commit to anything until the council approves it. Rob?
I was going to make a motion.
Oh, okay. Carolyn, did you have a comment?
No, I was just going to say, there is a sheet in here that speaks to the broader focus, and how it will benefit economic development, and it's a safety factor, the emergency, all the emergency services, that it improves that. So I believe it was Paulsville said they already have broadband, but I think they've already sent a letter in support. And if even though you had broadband, if something happens within your own system, you're still connected to this. And so,
I think everybody's in support of it.
Yeah, it ties all the emergency systems together at every level. You know, the first level, second level, third level, fourth level. Rob, you wanted to make a motion?
I do. I move to authorize the mayor to write a letter of support for the KitNet fiber network build-out for grant funds through ARRA stimulus grant, and to further authorize the commitment to share the cost of the matching grant in the amount not to exceed $5,000 per year.
No.
$5,000 over a 3-year period.
second,
Okay, discussion?
I'd just like to keep our thumb on top of this. The PUD doesn't have a good track record with us of
Sticking,
doing what they say they're going to do for us, and I'm glad that we finally got the fiber here in Port Orchard, but
You don't have to worry, I'm kind of their worst nightmare.
and John's efforts were huge. He's been
Yeah.
all over them the last couple of years, and rightly so.
How about the last 12 years?
I've only been around a couple of
The
years.
last thing that they want is a phone call from me,
Good.
so. Do we have a second? Oh, we had a second with Carolyn. Discussion?
Is there any possibility of any matching, grants to use for matching, or?
matching grants for matching?
The matching is the $5,000 over the 3 years.
that's in here.
But there's no other funds?
No.
That might not be?
Jim?
If we pass this and the KRCC comes and asks for $5,000 right away before the end of the year, what are we going to do?
Or even 1,600?
Or 1,600?
We're just going to say
Bake
no till
cakes.
next year.
Pardon?
How well can you bake cakes?
Can you wash cars?
Not in this weather.
You sell
Well,
cookies.
You know, we should recall that the budget is actually a roadmap, it's a blueprint, and there are things that come from time to time, money that we won't spend on, hopefully, and there'll be other expenses that we did not foresee, such as this, and we will, you know, have a discussion through the year on those items that come up, and I would imagine this would be one of those. I'd also point out that this is a process, as I understand it, and this is a commitment to go ahead and support the application for this stimulus grant. And I suppose there'll be some time for this to play out. The city would be notified that the grant came through, and then also usually, and always on these, there is a schedule then that we're able to adapt and follow. So that information be forthcoming, and we would adapt to that.
Okay, that's a good, warm enough feeling.
Definite maybe.
Okay, further discussion?
I
Carolyn?
don't know whether this could, when we have to come up with this money, whether it could fall under some kind of a capital, out of a capital fund, since you're basically helping to fund infrastructure, is what you're doing.
A utility.
Hmm?
It's a utility.
Yeah, sound like stormwater utility stuff to me.
So it'd come out of special utility or any one of our utilities?
Rob is shaking his head no. John?
Well, there may be.
Really?
We currently have a telemetry system at a lot of our reservoirs and wells that use phone lines. And if there is some way to take advantage of this to establish communication between those facilities and our Public Works Department, then that may be a justification for that utility, especially the water, obviously. I don't know the extent of that backbone and how it could, and whether, it can be in the right places for our reservoirs and wells and things of that nature, but, and I'm not suggesting that we just immediately go to the utility for that, but I'm just saying that there may be a possibility.
Call for the question.
Okay, question's been called for. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. All right, we have a discussion on the Little League field, and I have some notes here. Public Property Committee meeting on the Babe Ruth Association announced their decision to not renew the current lease of the senior baseball field located at Givens Playfield, which will expire April 30th. So Fred, this is your,
Yeah, last month at our meeting, we were told that Babe Ruth was going out of business and would not be renewing their lease. And the other two lessees were front and center saying, we want it, we want it. Art, in his previous comments, pretty much summed up the problem that we're facing here, in that football and baseball are not compatible, that football does tear up the field, and in fact, this was one of the issues that we had at our February meeting, was that the Pee-wees, the football organization, was top dressing and reseeding the, what I want to call the Babe Ruth field. And the Western Little League had a problem with that, because they were planning on, or wanted to use it for their signups and tryouts and things like that. They wanted to use that field, and the Pee-wees were saying, well, you know, this is part of our maintenance program and we're doing it. And they did, in fact, do it, and they lucked out on the weather. And yeah, I haven't been to the field, but I'm assuming that based on the mild weather we've had the last month, that it's probably taking root. Today, this morning at our meeting, we discussed the period between now and the end of April. This is the first thing that's under consideration, and that the South Kitsap Western Little League wants to use that field for that period of time, and that the leasee, which is the Babe Ruth, who's no longer in business, they're fine with it. They're both baseball organizations, they're fine with it. And our question that we had was, can we make that decision, or does Pee-wee have to sign off on it? Because Pee-wee they're co-leasing that same piece of property.
With Babe
Okay,
Ruth.
what I'm calling the Babe Ruth field, but that's what the Pee-wees use. And so we asked staff this morning to get an opinion from the attorney, which is what you have in front of you, and that opinion is that the Pee-wees do not have to sign off on that. In other words, if we decide to give the use of that field for the next 7 weeks to Western Little League for their signups and tryouts, Pee-wees has no say in it under their lease. We can go ahead and do that, because we are the leaseor. The second issue then, of course, is the leases of the Western Little League field. There's another area to the west of the Little League field that they currently use for their little guys, the T-ball type guys. And then the major league, or I mean the major league field, or the Pee-wee, the field that the Pee-wee football uses. And those leases and you know, how we distribute that is also up for grabs. The thing about this is kids. It's, you know, it's all about kids, and both organizations have great intentions, and they do a great job. And I'm a former Little League manager, and I was involved for years with Eastern Little League, but I also recognize the fact that a lot of people, in this community especially, are, very much in support of youth football. And on any given day, you'll see 25 of them here and 25 of them there, going after it, of all age levels and having a great time. And obviously, from our football program, it must have some effect. And I haven't heard of an awful lot of injury things and stuff like that. I think that they do a pretty good job of training and overseeing and teaching. And so, those are basically the issues. Bob's here to answer questions. No one from, I don't think, are you here from Pee Wee's? No. No one is here from Pee Wee's to answer any questions, so, I would suggest that probably we shouldn't make a decision tonight.
Were the Pee Wees notified we'd be discussing this tonight?
No, I don't.
Staff did not have time to make those calls, Your Honor.
Okay.
I mean, I'm surprised that we even got the opinion from the attorney at this short a time. I mean, this
I'm
is very
not.
unusual for an attorney.
I'm not.
Right here. Oh, come on, Fred.
You are no longer invited to the St. Patrick's Day party.
Well, Mr. Sowers, would you like to come up and give us your take on this?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Council, Department Heads. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Michelson for coming down tonight and talking on our behalf. And I live at 1425 Flower Avenue. I've been here for 30 years, and 20 of those have been involved with Little League. And I wouldn't be here tonight asking a part in the lease if it wasn't a program that I felt was really strong and good for the boys and girls of the community. The thing about it is the lease that's in question is a lease that was between Babe Ruth and Pee Wee football, and that's on the big field, the one that we're really talking about right now. And I had gotten a call a couple nights before the property meeting to come to the meeting, and that's when Jerry Holloway said that he wanted to know if we wanted to lease to the big field because they were going to go out of business. They were just couldn't get the volunteer base, and they were going to give it up. So I said, well, sure. So when I went to the meeting, that was bought up. And we're willing to share with the Pee Wee football, with that field. We know it's going to be a challenge because they do tear the field up a lot. And if you've ever been up in the area and you've seen the Art Michelson Little League field that we maintain, it is kept in pretty good shape. We've built a lot of things there over the year. We've installed the lights. We built on the concession stand. We just, we keep things in order. We're that type of organization. But I don't see a problem working with the Pee Wee organization. We would like to have it. We would like to entertain that we get the lease with them as a partnership, and so we could put our programs there. It's actually it's a skinned infield, and it's a low maintenance type of infield, and we would be able to put our girls on there too, as well as our boys, because of that fact. But as far as upkeep and everything, I can guarantee you if we are allowed to get the lease that we take care of it. And I think in the past we've worked with the city quite well. We really haven't had any problems. We bring tournaments to the area every year. We had our district and our state last year here, our Little League Major Leagues. If any of you got a chance to come up and see it, it was a great thing. Teams from all over the state and everything were here. So we do bring things into the community, and it's good. It's good for the kids, boys, girls, people that live around the ballpark, live there for years. They come down, watch a game at night, get a hot dog, watch the game on the lights, and it's I think it's a benefit to the community. And I appreciate I'd appreciate if we did get the lease. We've been here a long time. Been here, well, the organization itself's been there since 1951. So, and we've watched that field. We've watched programs come and go with that field. We watched Pony Coke come and go. We've watched Babe Ruth now come and go. And we're an organization that's been around since 1951, and hopefully I think we're going to be here to stay in the community. So that's all I got to say.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Sowers? Rob?
I think you answered my question. I just want to clarify. I know you guys do a great job. Little League, and it just that but I don't want to leave the Pee Wee's folks out in the
Right.
cold. So as long as you guys, we can going forward, when we redo these leases, you're willing to work with them, I can support this myself.
We are willing to work with them. I know there's some questions. Like I said, we're an organized group, and we like to clean things up, keep things clean and organized, but we can work with them. As a matter of fact, and that's why I don't understand the problem, is most of the people that are on the board at the Pee Wee football came from our organization, the Western Little League. So, I don't know. It's just
John?
one of those things.
I don't necessarily have a question for Bob, but I do have a comment that I'd like to make, so if anybody else has questions for Bob.
Okay.
Have you by any chance seen the correspondence from the Pee Wees dated February 16th? They had a 3-page letter, and they listed that they did not want a co-tenant, and they
No,
listed.
I have
some-
not seen that. The only problem we have, and I'll be honest with you, and I've talked to Pee Wees, I don't have a problem with talking to people. The only problem we've ever had with Pee Wees is, and you might, I don't know if you guys got a copy of the letter, one time we got a copy of a letter from the city about the trash. And I followed that up with a copy back to the city stating that we're not up there, at that time of the year, we were doing maintenance on our field. And we come down through there on weekends and we do pick up trash and try to keep it neat for people that come through. But that's the only thing that we've really had a run-in with them about. Now, if there's other issues, I don't know. I mean, there was an issue, I know when we put the lights in back in 1995, we had offered the Pee Wee organization, we had offered them at the time if they would like to purchase some lights that would go on the back of the light poles that we have now and would light that field up for them. And they said no, they didn't want anything to do with it, they would put their own lights up. And I was back in 95, so we said, okay, we're going to go ahead forward, we're going to go ahead and put the lights in. And we went ahead and put the lights in. But as far as anything else, we've never really had a run-in with them, never really have. There's been some problems with football, they'll come in and run the stairs and they'll run bleachers. And sometimes they'll break the bleachers and stuff, but that's going to happen. I understand that. But like I said, we try to take care of things. If in any organization that you have, people are going to vandalize or tear something up, then yeah, we have problems. But otherwise, we believe in anything that the city gives us to lease, we believe in maintaining it and taking care of it because you guys have entrusted us with that property.
Okay, Carolyn?
You specifically suggested that you could be co-leasees, if I understood you
Yes, ma'am.
correctly, and I'm wondering how that works in a legal document. You'd have to spell out what, it seems to me, instead of just a gentleman's agreement, okay, we agree you can do whatever at whatever time. And I'm asking a legal question, I should probably address it to our attorney, but it seems like you'd have to say in that document to make it work that it would depend on the schedules. Everybody has a right to their schedule at their time of the year. And then the maintenance is a different question. And my understanding about what Pee Wee's been doing in terms of the maintenance is really mostly reseeding. I know they mentioned some other things there, and it's also, I'm getting away from my question again, I'm kind of rambling, that Pee Wee's would have no place to go if they got shut out here, but my understanding is they also have property out in the Manchester area, out by Manchester Park, and they're going to build a field out there. I don't know where they are in that process. I don't know if they've started that yet. And they did say they didn't have any lighting out there. So, excuse
Okay.
me?
That's Eastern Little League out there.
Yeah.
That's Eastern Little League.
Eastern
Okay, I'm
Little.
getting Eastern and Western. You can see I'm not a ball
Right.
player. I'm not a sports person. Okay, so scratch that.
No, we are willing to work with them. And I'll be honest with you, I think the question comes up that we do, like I said, I've been involved with Little League for 20 years. And we do have a regimented organization, rules, regulations, things that we have to abide by. Safety, there's safety regulations that we have to abide by on the field we play. Every year we have to submit a safety plan and everything to Williamsport, because they have to agree, just like our lighting system. Our lighting system has to be metered every year. That goes back, and that's part of our insurance and charter that we have to do with Little League. And part of the field requirements are that the field has to be up to a certain par for our boys and girls to play on. It's a safety-related thing. And that's something that we would put up every year. Now, I'll be honest with you, if we do share with Pee Wee's, we will keep a maintenance up. I'm not gonna interfere with what they want to do, because now in the fall, when they do play football, they do tear it up. And we would just expect them in the agreement, and I think the agreement now that they have, at least they had with Babe Ruth, is they would share the maintenance agreements and everything. But I don't know how that'll end up. I know the infield, like I said, the infield is a skin, and we've looked at that. And that's why most of the parks you see are all skinned infields, because it's a low maintenance type thing for the ball fields themselves. But the outfield is something that we can fill in potholes and things like that. But we are willing to share that lease with them.
I guess it goes back to the legal question. You're saying you're willing to share, but, you know, what's going to require you to share? You're saying we'll do it, but, and I'm looking at the attorney again.
Can I respond to that in my comment?
Okay. If they sublease right now, if Pee Wee sublease from Babe Ruth, then there's got to be official document
Right.
that spells all that out. So if Western Little League got the lease, they could sublease to Pee Wee's, but, you know, there has been some friction among the groups, and we need to get away from that. So,
Okay,
I don't
Jerry
know
had
if
a
I'm being very
question. Did you want to let him ask his question before you make your comments? Okay, Jerry?
I guess my only question was, you know, basically, Pee Wee's is there, you're coming in and taking the spot that Babe Ruth
That Babe Ruth
held.
had.
And so, you know, you're last in my thinking, if you guys can't get along, then you're the first out. So it behooves, my question is, are you guys committed to making this work? Not willing, but actually committed to making it
Yes,
work? 'Cause
yes, we are,
partnerships
yes.
are a long-suffering thing. You don't just come into a partnership and think it's going to be 50-50. You're going to have to walk over the line, they're going to have to walk over the line and make sure this all works.
Right.
So you
And our
guys need
board-
to be committed to that.
Our board is very willing to work. We've talked about that as a board, and we were very willing to work with the Pee Wee's.
Okay, John? Or Fred, did you have a question?
No, go ahead. No, I don't have a question, Adam.
Okay,
Mine-
I have a comment when you all are done.
So do I.
Okay, well, my comment is going to kind of get to Carolyn's question, and I think we'll address it, and I want confirmation from the attorney. And I'm looking at the lease documents themselves, and there's, in section 7, there's a clause for assignments. And it says, "The lessee shall not assign or transfer this lease or any interest therein without the prior written consent of the leaseor," us.
Right.
"And the consent to an assignment shall not be deemed to be consent to any subsequent assignments. Written consent of the leaseor shall mean a majority of the city council members of the city of Port Orchard authorizing the mayor to execute a letter," blah, 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 blah. I have a copy of the letter dated February 9th from Babe Ruth to the city of Port Orchard, which indicates, now, you could argue this, that they're notifying us that they're planning to abandon the field, but they also say in their letter, "We respectfully request early termination of our lease as soon as possible. Our intent is to do a walkthrough this weekend, February 13, 14, with field availability for South Kitsap Western as early as Monday, February 15th. We also request, if necessary, a short-term lease directly between the city of Port Orchard and South Kitsap Western to be executed for the interim period until the lease term ends on April 30, 2010, which I guess, and I'm playing attorney, so Mr. Attorney, please correct me, because I don't have a shingle hanging on the wall for it, that they're asking for it to be assigned to Western Little League, for which we get to approve. If we approve it, there is a provision in here that the leasee acknowledges, this is section 4, paragraph C, "The leasee acknowledges that the premises are subject to an identical lease with the South Kitsap Pee Wee's football organization, and that lease and the South Kitsap Pee Wee shall coordinate their use and maintenance of the premises in a manner that is respectful of the purpose and intent of both organizations. Any disputes between the parties regarding the coordinated use and/or maintenance of the premises shall be referred to the mayor of Port Orchard, and the mayor's decision shall be a final resolution of any such dispute. So the way I'm reading this is that,
I'm not splitting my fee with you, no matter how much legal.
He just wants to come to the party.
Yeah.
I was hoping you were directing that.
It's a good thing you're on
thought
retainer
Yeah.
there, you know?
The way I'm reading this is they've asked to assign it to Western.
I agree.
Western has acknowledged willingness.
That's one thing.
If we agree to the assignment, it still is subject to the terms of this document.
But that's only for, till the end of April.
Well, now that's another question, and to
Yeah.
make sure that everything is out on the table, so there's no misunderstandings. Well, not necessarily. The term of the lease shall be for 5 years commencing May 1, 2005. Blah, blah, blah. Leaser hereby grants the leasee the first right to negotiate a renewal of said lease for an additional 5 years commencing May 1, 2010, subject to mutual consent and agreement as to the terms and conditions as negotiated. Now, the way I'm reading that is if we approve this assignment tonight, which I'm in favor of, Western has first right of refusal, if you will, to ask for negotiations for an extension.
The best way to think of it is that if you approve the assignment, Western steps into the shoes of Babe Ruth. And everything that Babe Ruth presently has under this lease, Western now has, including what you just described.
Exactly, which is,
Okay, that's a
they don't get an extension of the lease, but they can be first in line to request, the way I'm reading this, a 5-year, subject to mutual consent and agreement as to the terms and conditions as negotiated by the leaseor. So we have an opportunity to revisit these terms, but it would be first with Western, and hopefully we could reach an agreement. And I'm assuming that this condition that says you got to play well with Pee-wees would remain in the new term. So I want to make sure I'm clear on
Yep,
how this is going to
that's correct.
proceed.
But they have first right of refusal.
No.
But we're not but they'll be guaranteed that. And if they accept, then they're accepting under the same terms that is currently in place with the Babe Ruth League.
Well, yes, unless we want something different, we have an opportunity to include something different in there, as they would. It's negotiated, but, we don't have to agree. If we can't reach an agreement on new terms, then the lease goes away.
In other words, the terms are locked in through April 30.
Yeah.
After April 30th, if you want to continue to lease to Western, you can also present them with a totally new lease.
Or the same lease.
Or the same lease, totally up to you. You have that right. But they have the right to be the first party to be presented with whatever you decide is appropriate to, for any party wishing to lease that property.
That would be Western and Pee-wee's.
Pee-wee has identical lease
They
terms.
have a separate
Yeah.
document that's identical. They have the first right to enter into an agreement.
That's right.
But Western can refuse their agreement. We still have an agreement with Pee-wee's. Or they could agree and Pee-wee's could agree. I mean, it's,
Okay, Fred, you had a comment?
Yes. Number one, I think Pee-wees have a right to be represented in this discussion. I just think that's fair. And I'm looking at a picture here of several hundred kids from 2009 that participated in Pee-wee football. I also know that in spite of all the words, they do not in fact get along. It doesn't work. They cannot play in the same sandbox together. And this is right, this whole thing is basically, Pee-wees have already done their work. They've taken down their goalposts, they've top seeded, they've seeded, they've already done their work. And to go in a month after you lay down grass seed and have turnouts or, tryouts, whatever signups, would
Not be fair.
not be good for the work that they've done. I'm not going to say it would negate all the work that they've done, but it certainly would undo a lot of it and would necessitate more work being done. And apparently, Western Little League would do that work. Because their tryouts go right into practices and games, I don't know when that would happen. I see this as an opportunity of providing 2 sandboxes. One for baseball with the area to the west of the Western Little League field that they both use. Pee Wee and Western, they both use it. And then for Pee Wees to have the Babe Ruth field. 2 separate leases, 2 separate parcels of ground, no problems. Not everybody's going to be happy.
John again?
But anyway, that's the way I look at this thing, and because every time it's even more often than when the leases come up. It's when there's a maintenance issue, a equipment issue, lights, plumbing, that sort of thing. Between Babe Ruth and Pee Wee's, resolution was difficult to come by.
Okay, John, and then Jerry.
Well, I guess I would respectfully disagree with you, Fred. This arrangement, as it's been, with having a baseball organization and a football organization playing on the same field, although maybe not the best, has worked since 2005. The 2 organizations have played. I said not the best. There is a provision for either to raise a concern and get it resolved. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, but you get to cut the baby in half on this one, however,
I'm gonna talk about
whenever
this
those
when we're all
issues come
done.
forward. That area to the north was laid out to be a baseball diamond. It's got the backstops, the dugouts, the bleachers, as well as the lights that were installed on that north end for baseball by the baseball organization there that was there at the time. I believe there's this, although not the ideal situation, it is one that could provide space for both organizations. I live in that neighborhood, and I've had the benefit of watching the hundreds of children that participate in the football program. There's lots and lots of them. I've also benefited from watching all the kids participating in the baseball program, both from Western Little League as well as the senior children on the north end of the lot. And although they're not there in masses like they would be with the football, they are there every night for the entire baseball season, at least in the Little League area. This baseball field that we're talking about has been used by other organizations as well. They shared it with the high school. The high school has brought down and played on this field baseball on this field. So I think it's something that I would hope we could maintain to benefit both groups and not make it exclusive, one or the other, because I think there's a lot of children in both programs that can benefit it. And then the final thing I'll say, at least right now, is that, again, we're talking about, at least the way I'm approaching this, the assignment of this existing lease. And not necessarily what the terms are going to be, or not whether we're going to renew the lease. It's simply the assignment of this lease.
Okay, Jerry and then Carolyn.
I guess my question was, there was a concern about the field being not sodded, but seeded, and then you guys coming in and kind of trampling on it, I guess is what you were saying, basically. Isn't Babe Ruth gonna, if they'd stayed, would they have come in then too and trampled on it, or no? Did they start their season?
As I understood it, they would not have.
They tiptoed around it, or?
Well, they just have a different They have fewer
area?
numbers in a different situation.
Okay.
And they've worked it out with Pee-wee's, the schedule with Pee-wee's in the past that was a doable deal.
I kind of consider us the dad of the deal. It's our field. And basically, we're telling them to get along or we'll kick you both out. So get along.
Yeah,
And if you
a
don't get
majority,
along,
a
then-
majority of the field of play for baseball right now is in the infield itself. That's what they've tried to protect over the years. You have, you have a difference in football and baseball. In the outfield, you have 3 outfielders, right fielder, center fielder, left fielder. Not a lot of trampling going on. The infield up there in that area for the big boys is what's really gets tore up. I mean, that's where a majority of the play is done by the infielders. I don't know if they seed it or not. I know this time of year around here, most people are just putting down moss killer and some sweet soil or something like that. They don't really fertilize it. We have been fixing some holes up there, but like I said, we are, and the comments made between Babe Ruth and Pee Wee football, I can't deny they didn't have problems. And a lot of times they tried to pull us into it. I've been to meetings down here previously, and we don't want any arguments with them. We haven't been involved directly with Pee Wee football as an organization. We haven't had to share things, but we're willing to do that. And I think by giving us the opportunity, then we either make or break that. That's going to be up to us as an organization, Little League organization, to share with them and to deal with them. We really haven't been in partnership with them. So I don't know what the problem is, other than we do make them pick up things. We do make them pick up trash and keep kids off the fences.
Carolyn?
I'm really struggling with this, and I hate to take up so much time, but John brought up the issue of the assignment, and we hadn't had any discussion prior to your bringing that up, John. We did not discuss that in committee. But what if we don't honor that request to assign it to Western Little League? Babe Ruth has notified us that they no longer need to use the field. So according to what I just read, literally they could be abandoning the field. So what if we didn't authorize the assignment? Then what happens in that interim? Does it mean nobody can use the field?
No, it simply means that the city owns the property.
Yeah.
You have given rights to the Babe Ruth League to use it for a period of time.
Mhm.
If Babe Ruth has now notified you that they're not going to use it for the entire period of time, you have 2 choices, at least 2 choices. But tonight we're talking about either assigning the rights to a different party to use for the balance of the period of the lease, or the city could say, we're not going to honor an assignment. It no longer has been abandoned by Babe Ruth, and we now are choosing to lease it to whoever we want under whatever terms we, the city, choose. That is an option.
Yes, and that wasn't listed as an option. That's partly why I raised the question, because that would be one way of getting away from the guaranteed right of refusal under an assignment.
So I'd like to cut to the chase and make a motion.
I'd like to make a comment before you do, but go ahead, Fred.
I'm impressed by your presentation, and I'm certainly not against it. But what I have serious reservations about is that this was not a publicly noticed discussion item. The other side, the Pee-wees, were not notified. We have a 3-page letter from them that discusses a lot of concerns. Not even all of the council have seen this letter because it was given to us in committee.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either.
Right.
I don't know.
And
Yeah.
some of the bullet points do sound like they need to be addressed. For example, one player fell on a base fitting and had a gash. So it sounds like there are things that may not, I certainly believe that you want to work with them, and I would like to hear their side as well in person. So I am not going to be able to make a decision tonight on this.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else? Mark?
Mayor, I just did want to say that we have received calls also from other organizations. South Kitsap Eastern Little League has expressed interest, so news is out, so the decision won't get any easier.
Okay, John?
Well, I guess I want to make sure that I understand what the decision is. The decision is as to whether or not we're going to approve the assignment of this existing lease.
That's number one.
That's the number one decision. We're not, I guess I don't understand where Pee Wee's has any interest in this lease. They have their own lease that is in existence and will continue through the remainder of their term. So I guess I'm a little bit confused on that portion of it. Having other people in there, I guess, is a question that would come into play when you talk about the extension of this lease, which I don't know that we're absolutely obligated to. I mean, we may be obligated to, but
I
I guess
think
you could take it to an extreme and say, yeah, we want to go ahead and extend it with you, but the lease.
The terms are
payments
$10,000 a year. Yeah.
$10,000 a day.
Yeah.
Which, in essence, we don't necessarily have to approve the lease beyond the terms of this. I certainly wouldn't suggest that, and that's why I brought it out on the table, because I think it's something that everybody needs to at least be aware of, that the current lease document that we're talking about has that provision. So I guess I'll just stop there.
Okay, Rob?
Mr. Showers, is it true to say that the Babe Ruth organization filled a baseball need for a particular age group that historically you guys haven't served well? And with that, with them folding, then if someone else doesn't step into that role, there probably won't be a whole lot of way for the boys of that age group to play baseball
Right.
in our
and
community.
part of their program, part of their problem was their organization and their price. They pretty much priced themselves right out, and they had different organizations come in, select organizations from outside the area come in, and they were using the field and trying to turn it into like a select organization. They were charging anywhere from $150 to $160, $175 to play ball, and it got to the point where kids just couldn't afford that. So at the time, it was a program that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was pretty strong around here, because most of the kids at the time, when they left Little League at 12, 13 and up, they went to Babe Ruth. Now, since then, Little League has their organizations where they have the junior program, the senior, and the big league. It goes up to 18 years old. So those leagues have been getting stronger and developing a little bit more, and the increase in those for Little League because of the organization, because of the rules and regulations and things that they have put in place. It's a solid organization that is always going to be around. And like I said, I've watched other programs come and go on that field, and we're just looking for the opportunity to get in there and be a little bit and bring a little bit more stability to the area, especially with our program that we have now. We have close to 400 kids this year, and we already have 2 junior teams, a senior team, and a big league team already lined up and ready to play. So and unlike Eastern now, honestly, Eastern, Western, and Southern were all Little League organizations, but they've got their own field. I mean, they've already have a large field that was built and donated.
I'm surprised they.
I'm surprised they even got involved in that, because they do have their own field, and so does Southern. We've never had the ability to have our large field simply because of our location, and simply because it's always been Pony Colt or Babe Ruth.
So the field that you have, I know the answer to this,
Right.
but the field that you have
Mhm.
is not conducive, on the south end, because of the dimensions, is not conducive to the senior program because it's
No.
too small.
It's too small. Yeah. The senior program starts with, they do allow some 12-year-olds to play there, but we usually don't. They start at 13, 14, and then it goes 15, 16, 17, 18.
Base paths are longer, the outfield is longer.
Right.
Senior program.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, your turn, Mayor.
Okay. I think I spent the first 3 months that I was mayor dealing with or refereeing a fight between baseball and football on those fields, and I'm not going to do that again. I understand the Pee Wee's perspective, and I understand yours. I am a big supporter of Little League. I played Little League baseball. My dad coached Little League baseball. I coached Little League baseball. I believe in Little League baseball. I think it is just a great organization. And I want to make that real clear. But we're not going to get in a he said, she said, yeah contest with you and Pee Wee's. We spent about $7,200 of city staff time at the beginning of this a couple of years ago, fighting about those two fields and who was going to maintain them, and dealing with questions about, we filled in a pothole, you know, we shouldn't have had to do that. We're not going there about this. And I'm telling you that now. And what I told them then, and I'll tell you now, is you will get along with the Pee Wees and you will make this work, or you will both be gone. That's what I told them, that's what I'm telling you, and that's the way that's going to be, because I get to decide this in the end. So we want this to work for everybody. There's a bunch of those Pee Wee kids, there's a bunch of your kids. But we're not going to, you know, the city is not going to referee a fight between the two of your organizations. We're not doing that again. I want to make that really clear.
And I understand that. And,
Okay.
And like
Then
I
we're-
said,
then
we
we're done.
are willing to work with them, and if it comes to the point where we just can't work with them, then we'll go somewhere else.
Then you'll both be gone.
Right, I understand that. I really do. I understand that.
Okay, so you were going to make a motion?
Yeah. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the assignment of the current lease from the Babe Ruth Association to the South Kitsap Western Little League under the current terms and conditions for the period of March 10th, 2010 to April 30th, 2010.
Second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
All those abstaining? Motion carries.
Oh, that was painful.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. All right, report of council committees.
One more order of business, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to be asked to be excused from the meeting on the 23rd, if somebody'd be so kind to do that for me.
I would so move.
Second.
Do you have a good excuse?
What are you saying?
Asking to go on vacation,
When?
the 23rd.
He's asked to be excused from the 23rd's meeting.
Uh-oh. I think I'm going to be gone, too.
I asked
How many
for-
of us can be gone?
Three.
Three. I'm next,
There's got to be 4 here.
I'm in April, so put
because I'm going to be gone April 22nd through the March. Did you say April or March?
March.
Yeah, okay,
We
me
doing-
too.
Are you
Call
asking
for
for
the
motion?
question.
Yes.
I'm not.
Question's been called for.
I barely heard his motion.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
whatever.
All those in favor?
Yeah,
Aye.
All those opposed? All
I
those
may be next, but I got to go back and check my calendar. It's not when you're gone, it's not when you're gone.
It's when you're gone, right?
I'm not sure I'm missing a council meeting, that's what I need to recheck.
Okay, motion carried. Okay.
Thank you.
So what did you do, make a motion to be gone?
I didn't make a motion, I just.
I made the motion.
John
You're
made
going to
the
be gone,
motion.
Jerry?
Jim
I'm
second.
going to be gone March 22nd through the 25th. Is that, when's the meeting?
Mayor, I move that we excuse Mr. Childs from the 23rd meeting.
I'll second it.
Grudgingly.
The 25th.
Discussion?
What did you say?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstaining? Motion carried.
22nd, the when?
March 22nd.
Okay, reports of council committees.
25th, just 3 days?
Yeah.
John?
I didn't set up the date.
Mr. Mayor, I
Okay.
report on the Finance Committee meeting that we had on the 26th. There was a fair number of things that was discussed. We had a presentation from the Library District regarding a potential for a bond issue that's going to be presented to the voters in November of 2010. Just to remind folks, we currently are not part of the Library District. So if it was, we do have a contract with the Library District that obligates the city to pay the same levy rate directly to the library as if we were part of their district. So although the citizens of Port Orchard will not get an opportunity to vote on that levy, ultimately, they're going to be affected, because if that levy is approved by the rest of the county, the additional amount will have to come out of our general fund. So that was something that was kind of interesting. They did share with us what some of their plans were for the, if approved, and they were going to be doing some renovations or have some money that they could apply towards a new building here in Port Orchard, as well as a new facility in Silverdale, and I believe the third one was in Kingston, and some renovations in some of their others. So we talked briefly about the library and the condition of it. There was some estimates done on some refurbishing of the library, which would include a new gabled metal roof, and or we could go back or just maintain our Band-Aid approach to things while we hopefully will come together and be able to build a new facility for them, which is kind of where the committee was, is let's just keep going with the Band-Aid approach to thing. And I think there was, Mark, did you say it was $10,000 for the quick fixes on the roof?
Oh, the very quick fix was like $2,000.
Okay.
It's just a little bit bigger Band-Aid.
The other thing we talked about was the sales tax revenue. We received the distribution in February, which would have been for sales that occurred in December, and it did come in pretty much on target. So hopefully, if it will hold for the rest of the year, then we should be pretty much right on budget from what we budgeted, which, to remind folks, we budgeted pretty much zero increase over what we had received last year. So last year was pretty significant reduction. We talked some on the DNR lease. We've received a notice from the Department of Natural Resources regarding our payments of that lease. They're demanding payment and agreed that they would continue this calculation at the same rate as the existing lease, which would be based on assessed valuations of the adjoining property back in '97, if I remember correctly. So it's a good deal. We do have the money in the budget to cover the payment. They're demanding $61,000, and I think we've got $70,000 in the budget.
And that would include a payment of 2007, 2000, and 2009. It does not include a payment that we would be assessed for 2010.
Correct.
We will need to address that.
But at least it will be at the 97 rates, which hopefully would be to our advantage to maintain that agreement. We also talked about the electronic parking meters. The treasurer and the chief of police have been looking into those. They have proposals. We did talk about what options we should have in those machines. You can, one, they're solar powered. Two, they have, I believe, cellular technology to transmit the transactions, so we don't even necessarily have to go down there but put more paper in it. Unless we select the options that allow it to take cash. If it takes cash, then we have to send somebody down to empty the cash. So the committee's feeling was that, similar to what is in King County, we would set those machines up to just accept credit and debit. And that way there would be no cash down there, so we wouldn't have that liability. Now, to remind everybody, that is tied to this body's decision to change the parking rates down there at the parking lot. So if we're interested in moving forward with those new machines, we're also going to have to move forward with change to the ordinance that raises the fees. So I don't know if
We didn't do that already?
we have not changed the fees yet. We talked about it during the budget session that
Oh, that's right.
we do one would pay for the machines, which is a convenience for folks. So we probably need to have more discussion at that, and I don't know what folks' feelings are, if we want to put that on the next work study to run around the table. So could we get that on the next work study?
Yeah.
And then the last thing we talked about was in reference to one of the challenges that we have as any corporation, and that's the escalating healthcare costs and trying to keep up with those. And we've been notified by AWC that there's going to be some major changes coming in a couple of years. We're not quite sure what that is. But we've talked and asked that our human resource folks try to pull together a group of employees to start exploring what options or alternatives we may have to help try to mitigate some of those increases in healthcare costs. It might be that, as an example, we could go to a higher deductible plan, self-insure for the difference between current and a higher, but we would benefit from the reduced premiums on a monthly basis, and that's just one of many possible options. So we asked the mayor if he would pursue that further and start looking at what options there might be available. So, and then I will just finish with the next Finance Committee meeting is the 17th at 7:30 a.m. Myries.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to speak to the library issue just a little bit more. The number I was given, it represents, if that bond passes, I believe is about $130,000. And it would raise money to contribute to our new library. I personally am in favor of the levy. My concern is our citizens don't get a voice in that. And it's almost like we're collecting the money and passing it on to the library district. I would like us to explore the possibility of holding an election to potentially annex into the library district so our citizens do have a voice in whether or not to raise the levy and pass that tax on to themselves versus it just happening. So I'm not saying we should do it, but I'd like to see us explore that.
I think that's a work study item.
Yeah.
And it should probably be sooner rather than later, because if we're
Oh, I
going to
think
do
so,
it,
too.
it probably has to be on the primary, and because they're going to want to be on the November ballot, and I believe we'll have to do it. The library's checking into whether or not it can be simultaneous, and we don't believe it can be. It has to be two separate elections.
Well, one of the things we could explore is a special election. There is a cost to it, but it would separate out those decisions further such that, the citizens wouldn't feel like they're being hoodwinked or something like that. So at least we should explore what the cost of a special election would be for that and what the timing issues are. There's set date for specials, what we have to pass our direction. I can't remember if it's 90 days in advance or 120 days in advance of a special election, but there are requirements of the timing for us too as well. So if we're going to talk about this at a work study, it might be worth if
Yeah,
staff
next
could
Tuesday.
check on the timing issues and what those dates might be.
Okay, can you check on those?
I can. I believe in order to make the general election in November, you have to have everything done by May. I don't know the exact date, but I believe it's in May.
Well,
Can you verify that, because it seems like a...
Say, can you have answers for us by Tuesday?
I can.
Okay, great.
you.
Okay, other council committees? Jerry?
Tourism and Chimes and Lights is meeting tomorrow night at 5:30 here at City Hall.
That's it?
Yep.
Other committees?
Utilities Thursday?
Thursday.
Thursday morning, 7:30 at Myries. We're still working through sewer rates. We're getting close.
Yeah, but don't we have a SAC committee tomorrow night?
SAC meeting tomorrow night. Yeah, all
Okay.
kinds of sewer work going on.
Would I be correct in assuming we've pretty much had a public property report?
Well, yeah, we'll be looking at a request to rename Port Orchard Boulevard in the work study.
Yes, that is
Yeah.
I believe that was your direction, was to
And
bring
it
it
was
forward.
very little support for that in committee. We're doing away with, or we're going to recommend that the council do away with the RV exemptions. Currently, we have 4 live ones out there, one of which will expire this year, 1 next year, 2 next year, and a 3rd in 2012. And so we're only shutting out, well, we're not shutting them out. The committee would recommend that we honor those exemptions, but eliminate all others.
No renewals.
We've talked about Western Little League a little bit.
Little bit.
And the active club discussion, animals and things like that is ongoing. We'll be discussing that some more. We're at a point of talking with the janitorial service about, what they do and how they do it, and, some of the comments that we heard previous. And, but right now, our recommendations as far as animals is probably firmer than ever. And so we'll be talking about that in a future meeting to officially put things in place.
Okay, any other committee reports? Okay, report of the mayor. Well, I went to the Heroes Breakfast this morning, quite inspiring. While I was there, I also took the opportunity to chat with Norm Dick's representative, Clark Mather, about our appropriations applications that we have submitted to both Congressman Dix and Senator Murray for the parking garage property acquisition. I'd like to recognize Mr. Weaver for getting it done in a very timely manner, and great job that he did getting it done. Also, I attended my first PSRC meeting as a representative for the cities of Kitsap County. It was quite enlightening. I'll just keep my opinions to myself, though.
That'll be the day.
Was in a PSRC KRCC teleconference in which Jim participated. That was interesting. Had a meeting with the publisher of The Independent, just kind of talking over some city issues and where we were at with some things. Attended the business after hours for Custom Framing, celebrating 15 years in business on Bay Street. Quite an accomplishment. Also met with, after attending my first PSRC meeting, I met with Mark Branson afterwards, and they tried to force the Kool-Aid down my throat, but it didn't work. Attended the Hales Ales groundbreaking along with John. Testified in Olympia on House Bill 6510 along with Mr. Dorsey, and that bill which would extend Highway 166 610 feet and make it the state's jurisdiction is sitting on the governor's desk waiting for her signature.
Now, does that bill just limit it to the current, or does it continue to move as the boundary moves?
Well, it's my understanding that the way it was explained to me, that it continues it as the boundary moves, but it's what I've been told since then is that that's not necessarily so. It was my understanding in the beginning that was the intention of it. So I'm going to tell you the truth, I'm not really certain. Mr. Dorsey's over there shaking his head no, so I'm going to defer to him.
Yeah, in fighting a battle, you have to choose ground that you're
Where you
going to
draw
have
the line.
success. And at this point, working with Senator Kilmer's office, taking the 600 feet accomplishes our overall goal, whereas the issue of annexations and the contradiction between RCW 4724 and 3513 is a battle for another day. But our main, if the governor signs 6510, our main goal is accomplished, which is the 600 feet and then the ramifications and the benefits to the city that come with that 600 feet.
And it also positions us for going back next year and saying,
The next one, yeah.
yeah.
Get half a loaf before you get the whole loaf.
That's it. That's it. Had our first Kitsap County Consolidated Housing Authority meeting with the new director. And coincidentally, on his second day on the job, we met with the auditors because it's time for the annual audit. Talk about a trial by fire. I met with Mr. Ayenson, I'm not sure if that's correct, from AA about the Active Club. AA has offered to take over the maintenance of the Active Club, and I asked Mr. Dorsey to explore that and report back about whether that's a good plan, bad plan, what the history of that is, and whatnot. Met with Mayor Lent from Bremerton in reference to SKIA and the revenue sharing agreement. Met with Mayor Erickson of Paulsbo in reference to the revenue sharing agreement and getting support for our position for that, as well as talking about the disaster recovery plan, the possibility of us transporting our data onto their servers on a daily basis to back it up and then backing up to our servers, because the possibility of us having an earthquake or a fire and them having an earthquake or a fire on the same day are pretty remote. And something she told me is they back their data up to the county, but that really doesn't work for us because if we had an earthquake here, it could impact the county as well. But they are perfectly willing to do that, and she directed her IT person to get with Vince and try to work out the details of that. We also discussed the possibility of sharing a prosecuting attorney. We are currently paying about $96,000, I think, to the county for prosecution services. They're paying a like amount. We're wondering if we can't hire a prosecutor that worked half-time for us, half-time for them, for a lesser amount for both of us. So that's something else that we're looking into. So it was a very fruitful discussion. And other than that, attended the Housing Authority Personnel Committee, Kitsap Transit Personnel Committee, or Health District Personnel Committee, I'm sorry, on an hour-and-a-half conference call this afternoon. And one other thing that we kind of kicked around at KRCC is the idea of doing a cost-benefit analysis about healthcare costs for all of the cities, the county, all of the junior taxing districts, everybody that provides healthcare, and healthcare benefits to their employees, if we could not self-insure cheaper than all of us are paying. So, we want to look into doing a cost-benefit analysis for that and see if we can't all save some money, because healthcare costs are the highest thing that any of us are dealing with. It's the major cost item and the fastest escalating cost item that any of us are dealing with. So we'll be looking into that, and I'll be reporting back. So that's my report. So staff reports.
Federal transportation projects. We talked already about the Bay Street pedestrian pathway. On Tremont, city staff and consultants met with all the utility providers for the corridor. Kitsap, PUD1, Quest, Broadband, PSC, Patelco, on reviewing and getting their plans finalized based on the 85% design. The city attorneys reviewed our acquisition documents, and we are now moving ahead with getting those into the hands of Universal to start acquisition. And we've been working with the treasurer also on acquisition process so that we have that in place as far as who signs checks, how do we get the money. So we've been working closely with the treasurer's office to get that all squared away so that we don't write a check that bounces. Bay Street seawall, FHWA finally came off of furlough and finally got the Bay Street seawall obligation through today. So now we actually have construction funds in place and obligated, and we're going out to bid on that project. We talked about 6510, and we also submitted today finally the DNR lease boundary information. I finally got Reed to get that done, and we sent it directly to Neil Cox. So hopefully we'll get that finalized. And that's it.
Okay, for annexations, you're going to have a South Sedgwick annexation notice of intent before you later in the month. That's essentially all the parcels south of Albertsons and Lowe's to our UGA limits. South Kitsap School District has also approached the city about annexing its parcel on Sydney and maybe adjacent parcels looking forward, but they're talking to their board right now. So that's where we stand on annexations.
Oh, and there was one other, we did meet last week on the 10th with the South Sedgwick Sydney Joint Planning Area folks as an initial kickoff meeting to try to determine, and Councilman Patonsu was there, on getting capital improvements for water and sewer for that area. So it was just the initial meeting, a brainstorming, and there'll be more meetings to follow, I'm sure.
Anyone else?
Just a reminder that St. Patrick's Day party next week, and hope all of you are able to attend.
And if anyone gets a DUI, there's free defense, is that correct?
See Chief Townsend about that.
It's not his jurisdiction.
Okay. All right, citizen comments. Do we have anyone who would like to address the council? Anyone? All right, with that, we're adjourned. Thank you for sharing your...
Last time it was a
Missed the spot?
You got this one.
Yeah, I know
This
what
one's
to
the
say about that.
deposits.
Oh, I missed one.